Good evening, guys. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studio in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Lisa Gerrard and Marcello De Francisci accepted our invitation to our show. Lisa and Marcello, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
This is a follow-up interview to the one that we did in February of this year. Well, 6 months ago now. And first, I would like to congratulate you guys on reaching 1 million views on YouTube with the video When the Line of Morning Comes. Feel free to elaborate that, Marcello, because as people don't know, right, you guys were working together and you put the album together with Lisa as well. But the videos and the has taken this particular track, the particular album, into another, level altogether. And it's a lot of work to put, It's one thing to put, track that will take a long time, and then engineering, mastering, and then create another superb video as well on your own, So feel free to elaborate, the excitement when you saw that 1 million views there. We changed a couple of messages when you were close.
We kept looking at it, for Exaudia, and I'm such a fan of Lisa's work that. She's such an icon in our culture that
Absolutely.
Felt that Exaudia had to be something that had to have also a visual aspect to it, not just musical, so that people could dive into the world we're trying to create. And so yeah, I never anticipated that these videos would have that level of reaction, but it's as a result of this, on this next album, we want to take it to the next level and on a visual level. And so, we're talking and we're planning on doing some really exciting things with this next album, visually and musically, and so. And Lisa, tell me, share some of your thoughts regarding all this.
Well, this particular piece was very much something that you created, and I feel very much like the ghost of the banquet, because it's your music and you took my voice and made this extraordinary construction with this, which works so beautifully with the visuals. I agree with that one person that was speaking to you, that each time I look at this, I well up inside. It's so it presses into me, and I become quite overwhelmed when I see the drama and the beauty and the fragility in this piece. It's so delicate and yet incredibly powerful. So, I'm very honored to be a part of this construction. I think it's absolutely, it is exactly as it should be. I can't see anything that could be improved or anything that feels that it's out of context, or it's a wonderful evolution of music and image. And it's very I know you as a person, and I think that this piece probably represents you as an artist more than some other pieces. This really is something very personal. I see something very personal to you, to your approach to music and your creative passion.
Oh, when the light of morning comes, for me, the part that I really love about it is that it's very much an aria. Even though Lisa just said everything that she said, but for me, it's this incredible Lisa Gerrard aria. What an opportunity to showcase this aria that she sang, very operatic. She came from the world of Dead Can Dance and very world music, but now I think her voice and what she's done with her voice and how she's kept fine-tuning her instrument is like she's gone to a whole new level. And I think this piece really showcases that. That's why, I couldn't help but to go in almost an operatic route because of the power of her voice. The vocals on this track are just incredible. And it's funny, Chris Conti sent me there's a gentleman that's doing reaction videos to music, and they sent him this piece. And in the reaction video, the very moment that he heard the first note of Lisa's voice, the guy starts tearing up on the video. Yeah. And so that's the power that Lisa has. I mean, I've seen comments regarding this video in YouTube where people are saying, I think Lisa was around during the creation of the universe, because she has her vocal has that power. I remember when we first met, I was in LA, and one night we were driving around LA, and I said to her, your vocals remind me of maybe some kind of a priestess that lived back in Greece in the temple of Minerva or something like this. You know what I mean? She has that resonance, that vibration in her voice. It's extraordinary. I don't think sometimes she's even aware of the power that she expresses through her work. So.
Yeah. So for me, right, I'm not a musician. I don't read music. I go to a lot of concerts. So I was sitting usually the first 2 rows, seeing you with Dick and Dance or with Hans Zimmer. And you don't know, Lisa, the power that you have on people when you're singing. Because you are singing, people are looking at you. And if people are, I don't know, Dick and Dance. I have seen Dick and Dance, I don't know, 10 or 20 times in my life. And it's very, very emotional, very powerful. The range of your voice, and I don't know how to describe it. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You should be on my shoes or somebody else's shoes, in the opposite side, right? To see, be in the audience, right? To see the impact you have on people. It's amazing. You're really gifted, God created the world, give you that power of your voice, and it has evolved over time, because I have all the Dead Can Dance records, of course, and I know them well, and I listened the beginning, and then the 2 years after that, and 2 years, and then you start working with different movie director and doing other stuff, and definitely it has, evolved, and you are reaching out new heights, if you will,
I always feel that when I sing that, a lot of people say to me, oh, what happens and what do you feel? I feel this, especially in the live concerts, that there's a kind of communion or something that happens. It's not just about me and my voice. There's something very fragile about the connection between the people that are attentive to that moment that the singing is, and that we are all in the same position, that these singings or these instructions that come from the music, which is what I'm performing, are something that is innate within the work itself. It's very delicate. And because it's very delicate, people that are exposed to this become very fragile because of the extreme delicate nature of this presence, of this interpretation, or the information that's already in the music without being visible. You understand? It's an invisible reality. But because it creates this incredible fragility in the listener, that it becomes a little bit cathartic for them. And they start to cry, because this is only my interpretation. And I believe that they start to cry because something so fragile is allowed to surface. And because of confidence, and it creates this incredible surface for emotions to just come, because there's no fear in this moment. There's no fear. And I believe that there is no fear because there's no thought. There's no thought. There's no practical, analytical experience. It's purely sound, frequency, and emotion. And it's very fragile. So there's this trust that comes out of that becomes cathartic, and then that brings tears. It's sometimes not even that I think that people think the work is beautiful. I think it's just that it's so delicate. I remember going through an experience. I went to see Cirque Soleil when I was living in Spain years and years and years, a million years ago. And there was all these motorbikes and there was all this stuff and noise. And I just thought, oh, I'm not coping with all this. And then all of a sudden there was a girl in the sky on a swing. And she just sort of went, and in the canopy, in the apex of this extraordinary, like cathedral-like tent, there was this sound that was so, and it drew something. I felt drawn and felt completely exposed at this moment. So I know how people feel, sort of. I get an inkling, because it's happened to me too. It happened to me with the girl on the swing. There was nothing to analyze intellectually. There was nothing. It was just a pure, innocent, no thought process tune that opened up these emotions and this attention. You're so attentive to this thing. And it's different because normally at the same time as we're going through the experience of, of a performance, our brain is analyzing what's said. There's a lot of words and there's a lot of musical parts and things, but because of the simplicity, and that's the thing that I found with Decan dance, usually the strongest moments that I had a connection with the audience through the singing was where there was very little music. So there was hardly anything for the brain to process, and it became a very emotional, empathy experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And because in a sort of normal lyrics that people, any singer will sing in English, you're using your own vocabulary, so people put even more attention, and it's amazing. It's unbelievable. It's hard for me to describe. I get very emotional when I listen to your stuff.
The reason why it works is because you don't need to describe it. The reason why that connection is, the lack of a need for description, that you suddenly surrender at that moment because there's nothing there for you to process intellectually.
That's right. Yeah. If you're thinking, you hear, hey, I broke up with my girl, or my parent passed away, you're putting your attention on the lyrics, but in your case, it's no lyrics, right?
When you broke up with your girl or broke up with, and you create, and so it becomes a different story of the mind.
That's right. Yeah. I wanna read a couple of comments that people posted on YouTube. They say, Lisa Gerrard's voice is what I want to hear as I enter heaven. And another one, the person saying her voice is a musical painting on itself. maybe you should read one day if you have the time. But people really get emotional, get attached to your voice, to your music, and of course the two of you, So
that's right. It must be pointed out that with this particular piece that's hit 1 million hits, it has. I mean, for me to be able to have that voice taken and placed into such a crown of beauty and such a powerful message, which is also abstract, but creates this extraordinary story from it's almost like this. It's like you're in a room and there's all these other people in a room and they're all experiencing completely different things. But the sound outside of the room, they can all hear, like a street sound or some cars going by or people talking or whatever. But each individual room is a completely different experience, but you're all hearing the same jackhammer or the same thing outside. That's how this piece feels to me. It's like there's all these different rooms that the music and the voice is going through, but there's this undercurrent that it's like every room in the piece can hear this undercurrent, and it builds and grows and explodes, and it creates this incredible unity between these complex corridors and makes it very, very simple. I think it's very, very, very clever and very beautiful. I'm very honored to be involved in that.
Totally.
I would never have done music like this with that vocal. If I was left with this vocal, I probably would have done something quite different to this. I was really blown away by the sense of drama that comes from the music. It's a pure sense of drama. It's very operatic.
Yeah, and also, I think my understanding is you guys were not sitting in the same studio for a couple of weeks, right? That was done during the pandemic, Marcello. Of course, you couldn't fly, you couldn't travel, and you were sending back and forth. Hey, Lisa, can you change this? Can you beat this? Blah, blah, blah. And then you put it all together, and then from there you create.
Plus, he was doing that with the visuals as well. He was sending the visuals backwards and forwards, so he was evolving things.
Well, I mean, the thing is that we're discovering as that it's not just about the music; it's an entire experience that you have to provide to the audience today. Music. I mean, music today has to have a visual aspect to it.
Totally.
And thing that I really think that we should definitely elaborate more in the work that's to come, because this is Lisa to me is such a world in itself. It's such a, when I listen to her vocals, I'm transported into this world. That's why I love working with her. I mean, because she'll do something and it'll force me to rewrite an entire piece of music because of what she does. I'll send her something thinking, okay, I'd like her to sing on this, right? But then it's not that she sings on something, it's that my music has to sing on her. So when I get those back, I'm like, I have to completely re-architecturalize the entire piece, because I can't deny the beauty and the writing, the compositional capacity that she has as an artist. And so all of that ends up becoming so cinematic that it's very hard for it to stand on its own, just as a piece of music. It's like we have to, our sensibility goes beyond just the music, and we're like, okay, we want to express something further than just the music, And so, and the music basically, it's funny because when I was speaking with a producer actually recently, and we were talking about a film that Lisa and I are beginning to embark on collaboratively, and I said to him, look, at the end of the day, the picture's going to tell all. The picture doesn't lie. And when you write the right piece of music to the picture, you can tell it works. And instantly, if it doesn't work. Well, the same thing, if we write a piece of music, that we express something very powerful in, then the visuals are gonna basically follow the music. If it's a secondary part of the process. So.
Yeah, absolutely. This is for the audience. This is the album that we're talking about, where you have it on vinyl CD. It's a beautiful album. The other track that is very well, they're all great, but in terms of the video, the Until We Meet Again has 660,000 views. So it's getting way out there. You may end up with an album that eventually will hit 1 million views on every single track. That is unheard of,
You're the same person watching it over and over again, do you?
No, I'm not. No, there are probably millions of people all over the world watching that all over again. It's amazing. 600,000 people all over the world, or 1 million, whatever number happens to be. And every track has 5,000, 10,000 comments. My dad passed away, my dog, something happened to my dog, my family, or whatever the circumstances of folks all over the world. I was listening to his music and I was at peace. It's give me comfort. It's amazing. So you may end up with an album that has 1 million views on every track.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I read one of the comments where I believe a woman had lost her husband, and she said, this piece reminds me of my husband. I mean, it was so so
Good.
touched that it's interesting because when it was New Year's Eve, and Lisa had sent me these vocals for Until We Meet Again a week prior or something, and I had them in the studio. I was like, okay, I've got to get to them. I was working on other tracks, and I had planned to go out that night to a party or something, New Year's Eve in LA, and so I said I think it was like 9 or 10 o'clock. I said, well, let me listen to see what Lisa did. And I placed her vocals on the track. And I remember when I found that one performance that I could really bank on, because it I remember I literally wept, and it changed my mood in such a way that I stayed home that night, and I ended up working on that track till like 5 a.m. the next day. So, and the one thing that it reminded me of is almost like a modern version of Mercedes Sosa, because of the charangos and the guitars in the beginning, and all of a sudden it's like Lisa she tuned into that frequency and she knocked it out of the ballpark. I mean, I'm not trying to like over create compliments to each other here, like we're one huge little fan group here, but I couldn't help it. I mean, it was just extraordinary. And also the challenge for me, I remember when I listened to that piece, we were just beginning to work on the album. It almost frightened me, because I said, I have to make sure that I bring service to this performance, that I don't mess it up. So I treaded very carefully on that track, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna take away anything from the performance, that I was gonna respect it in its most optimum way, because it was such an incredible performance that I felt a huge responsibility to it. So I'm glad it came out well.
No, it did, man. It did. Okay, so the obvious question is, a lot of people are asking, is there a possibility of touring Exaudia in 2024, next year? Can be, 10 cities, or, one country, like you did with the album with Jules Maxwell. Quite sure people are receptive, and the momentum is here now. Let's say 1 million views on every track or several tracks, but a lot of people are asking. Dead Can Dance is dead for now. And of course, Lisa, I know you're working with Hans Zimmer and a bunch of other people. So, of course, you cannot predict the future, but is there a possibility in the works, or anything people can do to help out, or any financier putting the money to do, I don't know, 5 cities, 10 cities? Instead of Portugal, can be Spain, or can be, a concert here, a concert there, but it's more complicated because more expensive. You need to move the equipment and to one city or another. So have one city and do 8 or 10 tours that will be, sold out months in advance. Easy for me to ask, but difficult for you guys to answer that question.
No, well, the thing is, we would love this, because there's nothing like the stage to bring another dimension to the world.
Yeah.
It's just the construction of, putting this together, and how do you make connections with the people that can support this vision also, and help with the promotion side of it. After COVID, we lost a lot of people in this area, and people are very nervous about, this kind of thing, because it's such an unknown quantity. It's something new. It's not like Dead Can Dance, where, you have Dead Can Dance as, the legacy of the work is 40 years old. A lot of the people that are there have grown with us from the beginning and become more. And it's such an old, long, deep journey, So you never really know what's going to happen with something like this. I personally, totally and utterly would be committed to doing something with this work, because I believe it's beautiful and could be really exciting to unwrap that other dimension that comes with the power of doing things live. But it's how to make this, a possibility. That's the thing that I think we need to get some advice on how to. Would you agree, Marcello?
Yeah, I mean, being more involved in the film industry, because I was never really a recording artist. I never thought I'd fall into doing albums. It's something that I always wanted to do, but my philosophy is to keep putting work out there, and eventually the audience will, the audience and people will approach where they'll say, we want you guys to do a tour. And that's one of the reasons why in this next album, The Poetry of Life, I'm inviting, alongside Lisa, artists to be part of this effort, because I think we could create something really unique by showcasing some really, really exciting artists that have already signed on to collaborate on some of the tracks. And, my vision is very boutique always. Having a background in painting, when I learned how to paint in Seville, and I went to a school that Bartolomé Murillo founded. And so, I came from that school, and studying the work of Leonardo da Vinci. In living in Europe, the culture was, do 10 masterpieces. You don't need to do a million. Do 10 masterpieces that are really going to do something. And so I tend to come from that world. Let's create things that are so unique and so boutique that it's going to propel people to say, we want to see this on stage. So my philosophy is to keep working. We keep doing more music. We keep releasing it. Every step is a greater step. We take it to the next level. This next album, there's some amazing work that we're going to take to the next level. We got some amazing artists that have signed on. So, I think the touring will come naturally, just like the music has.
So to elaborate, Marcello, in what's the central concept behind the new album? When it's coming up? Any release date? If you can announce it. I know it's a lot of work.
The thing is that since I'm involved in producing it, mixing, mastering, all that, I'm right now getting files from artists from different parts of the globe, and at the same time, Lisa and I are going to start collaborating on a film that just came to us. So, writing the score for that film, which is a film called Guño Cholo. It's a film that was shot in Nepal. So we're going to be working on that. We're going to so I can't really give a time date of the album, and we're still waiting for certain artists to come on board and to deliver what they are supposed to deliver. So I can't really give a date right now what it's going to take, but I can guarantee that this is going to be a really, really cool album.
Yeah. Knowing the two of you, this is going to be another masterpiece, like Exaudia. And then again, the same question. You have two great albums. What do you do with it? I mean, the difference, right, Marcello, as we talked before, in this new album, The Poetry of Life, they're going to be big name artists, so they will have more weights on the shoulder of record label. Hey, we need to tour with this, whether we do 5 cities, 10 cities, or whatever, it's the momentum is there.
Going back to the peak idea, I'm more partial to doing 10 concerts.
Yeah,
Paris, London, Lisboa, New York,
Washington,
LA,
D.C.
Washington, D.C. We don't need to do 30, 40 concerts. I think it'll create more of a stigma if we do 10 concerts and people are going to say we're going to travel. As opposed to, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I think it would be more feasible to do something like that. What do you think, Lisa?
there's lots of different ways of doing this work. I mean, I think I must have been one of the few people on the planet that's probably done every single different way of doing this. And some things are successful in terms of, you know, the conventional ways of seeing success. But the one thing that's really remarkable about touring is actually being in a situation creatively with your audience, you know, and, you know, with your community. That's the reason why ultimately you do this at the end. It's to make that connection. So, and I can guarantee to you 10 concerts, I mean, to do all that work and put it together for 10 concerts, you'll know at the end of it, why didn't we do more concerts? Because it's crazy you're just getting started. You know, 10 concerts, you're just getting started. You know, you're just starting to, you know, it's sort of crazy. But just you have to construct it so that you're taking some breaks in between. But I think it's worth traveling more. And you have to get to the places where the people can't get to you. You can't just expect everyone to come to you. So, you know, and it's important that you make that effort and that you grow that thing. That was the thing with Brendan and I with Dead Can Dance. I mean, we spent 9 years, you know, developing that work before anyone really got it from in a global context, if you know what I mean. So we did a lot of small countries, but, you know, I'm not getting any younger and things like that, but I still believe in the concept of, like we did in Portugal, where you go from town to town and you meet the people, and you'll find that people will drive to come to those concerts, and they think, wow, they're doing this thing in Portugal, I'm going to go over from Spain, or, you know, I'm going to go from here or from France. And when you're doing the signings afterwards, you get to meet your public, and that's the salt. That's the real salt of doing live concerts. You know, all the work is done, and then you take it and you get to create this wonderful sort of energy, soulful energy together with people that, you know, they've worked hard all day, they've been listening to the kids screaming, and then they have this opportunity to be together in a room where they can just embrace and be embraced. It's really important. The live work is much more interesting to me than, because I know you're brilliant with film and everything, Marcello. You really are amazing with all this kind of work. I personally don't enjoy being in a room working on a movie as much as I enjoy doing concerts, because concerts is for me the salt. When you're working on the film with the music, with the thing that I find really exciting about doing film is unlocking the director's vision more than that connective tissue. So it's a completely different experience for me. And it's not really to say that one is better than the other, even though that sounds like a contradiction. It's that they're different. The live work is the connection soulfully that you make with a group of people or with this global community that has been touched by your work, that you get to experience another layer of that. Where the film thing is, you know, you just work really, really hard to unlock the director's vision and figure out what you're going to make. And it's not until the film is out that you see the reaction or it as a complete context. So they're two different worlds. But I think because you've never toured before, with the greatest respect, I think once you do this, even though it's exhausting, it's so energizing, and always at the end of the concert tour, you're full of new ideas. It's like a powerhouse for growing creative ideas. And you have a lot of energy for this, you know. Whereas when you're doing film, you have to be energized by the fact that you look at this project and think, this is a worthy project, I want to be involved in it. And your energy has to come from this. And also in the vision of your director, where how committed they are, how passionate they are. And then you pick up on those things, you know. But then you have to, you know what it's like. There are days when you weep in the shower because you don't know what you're going to write. And, you know, it's the terror. Just, you know, how many times have you done that? I mean, I know I have. Just stood there and just prayed and thought, how am I going to get out of this? I can't. I don't even know what I'm going to do next. And then suddenly, and something will come. You know what it's like, Marcello. You know.
Well, we certainly experienced that earlier this year.
Yes, there was plenty of tears.
Yeah.
Never mind. Beautiful tears, tears of creation.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, what other questions do we have in the arsenal?
Yeah, and also it's important that nowadays, well, probably all the time, but people that are going to be attending the show, they want to take a selfie, they want to buy a CD, sign it, autograph by you, the T-shirt, whatever. So people want the contact. I mean, you can sell whatever, 100,000 CD, but people want to see you, reach out to you, take a picture with you.
Yeah, but even the most fragile moment. I hope I'm not saying too much because I don't want to break the spell that happens in the silence when these things happen. But it's that moment where you're sitting at a table and someone walks up to you and they've got, some will have a little piece of ticket or something they found, others will have 500 covers from a CD or something like this, Besides, it's that unique moment where you're just meeting without all of that other stuff, without the CDs and, whatever, just that unique moment where those two energies come into connection. And that it's like, I've often described it, it's like, when ants are blind, and they walk in a line and they touch heads so that they can find their way on their journey. It's something like that. It's very fragile. And that's the thing that's really amazing about when you meet people after the concerts. They're so different. There's so much diversity. You meet every single kind of person on the planet. It's fascinating.
And actually, I know that people were, the shows in Portugal, people were bringing you gift, like a flower or
I know. And, it's a trauma because I can't part with these gifts. So I have to go through these extraordinary things to facilitate them and get them back to where I am, and sometimes I can't carry them because it's too, they're too fragile or something. So I have to arrange for this to be packed properly, all this. I can't just shove it in a suitcase, but it's incredible things, the energy that I have around me in my home, just from gifts. I mean, Marcello's been here. From the gifts that my public has given me, I know that sounds a bit sort of pompous, doesn't it, my public, the people that love and have connected with the work, it creates such a warmth. They create such a warmth, Some of them, I look at them and I think, is this really how they see me, And they'll do some kind of woman with black snakes coming out of her head and sort of, kind of thing. But there's something so, and they give it to you in this beautiful, innocent way, like, here, I painted this for you, kind of thing. I look at that and they say, it's you, it's a portrait of you, kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, so it's really interesting to see how people see you, because there's some paintings as well. There's lots of paintings, that people give me. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I mean, I got a cushion from someone recently, like a cover for a cushion. And I looked at it, I thought, what an exquisite flower, And it's so complex, this flower. And then when I turned it inside out, every stitch had been done by hand.
Mm-hmm. Wow, amazing.
Everything had been done by hand on this cushion. Extraordinary. And this lady just put it in her bag. She said, this is for you. Don't open it now. Take it with you. And I thought, I never even got her email. And half of the people that give you the gifts, they don't, please, guys, if you're listening, can you please put your emails on these gifts so I can at least say thank you?
Mm.
Because so many gifts just come and,
No, I know what you mean. I'm going to ask some questions that people were posting to the Facebook. They wanted to know, let me see. How did you two meet?
That was interesting.
Actually, the first time Lisa and I met, we just stared at each other and we didn't really know each other. That was, remember? Do you remember that, Lisa?
You said that was at Media Ventures, was it?
Yeah, one day I stopped at Hans Zimmer's studio because I had interned there for a few years, a couple of years, and Hans was in the kitchen having lunch or something, and I spoke to him, and I went to the restroom. And on the way back, I saw this woman who was dressed in light blue, and we just stared at each other. And I thought it was a very, very unique moment because we just stared at each other, and I don't know, it was like as if we knew each other, but we didn't want to say anything. And so a few years later, Patrick Cassidy asked me if I could help him because Lisa was coming into town to work on a TV show called Kings. And I had a recording studio in Koreatown. And since I'm always been involved in mixing and producing and recording, they thought that my studio would be an adequate avenue to have Lisa come in and do her thing while Patrick was writing music at his house. And so I remember the moment that that I opened the door and I see Lisa Gerrard and Patrick and his brother Frank. The moment she looked at me, she said, "I know you. I never forget a face." And it was a few weeks later that I actually remembered that moment at remote control, and that I actually connected the dots. And I said, "Yeah, it's funny. We did meet before. We just didn't speak to each other."
Mm.
So
interesting. And then we ended up in a situation, but it was remarkable because we were doing this thing, and Patrick had written this piece of music, and I'd just come back from Borneo, and I noticed that, and I was doing some singing on the tracks, and I realized that my cello had very, very honed engineering skills and technical skills, and a good ear, which is even more important. And I was interested, I was interested in his skill set and impressed. And I think one thing led to another, and we decided that we should further our, creative journey together if something came up, or if it was a possibility or whatever, that we'd do something together. And we did.
It's funny because at that time when I first met Lisa and in my studio, and she came in and she started working on this project, she was approached by a producer. They were looking to do a film about the life of Buddha. And so Lisa said, sure. And so I started making some demos, which eventually turned into Departum. We put some demos together and we sent them in, and then as a result, we were like, okay, well, let's the film was never got financing, but we had these really cool demos, and we were like, well, look, we can really.
Right. And that's when I realized that you had incredible compositional skills. That you weren't only working in the engineering and the technical side of the work, that you were actually a composer. It was because of that.
So
I wanna share a picture with you guys as well. Give me 1 minute. Can you see my screen?
Oh yeah! Wow.
That picture have gone around the world, so to speak, because a lot of her name is Teresa. She's from Spain, and she went to Portugal a couple of times to see your show, right? And then the way that you're looking at her and so forth, it's I don't know. A lot of people have commented on the picture. It's on Facebook, and I wanted to mention her name because she's one of your biggest fans all over the world. You have many.
She's from Zaragoza, Teresita. She's a very sweet lady.
Very nice lady, yeah.
Spoken to her, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Another question. Let me look at my list here. Somebody wanted to know, this is a question for you, Lisa. Can you describe what's happening inside of you when you sing? If anything.
No, it's like it's an automatic. It's something automatic. I can't describe that. It's automatic. I know that if I hear something from the music itself, once I hear the music, there's another part that opens, another gate opens. And it's like I think most people that do anything to the point where they're no longer, it's not to say physically present, because that sounds too esoteric. It's so fast. It's like, you know, I had this, the only way I can describe it is, I had this experience recently, I'll try and keep it very short, where I had a guy who called me who'd just been doing a movie, and it's actually just come out from the MIF thing, and it's a film called Voices in Deep, and he contacted me, and it wasn't anything to do with the film. He just gives me a call every now and again, because I worked with him on another project, West of Sunshine, and to find out how I'm going and stuff like that, and talk and just have a chat, you know. And I got this weird unction that came into my body when I got the call, and I heard him, and I felt this sense of urgency, almost like I was in the presence of something incredibly important. And he said to me, I said, how are you going with your work? And he said, well, my project has been impounded because I've run out of money and I can't pay to have the last thing done on the thing. So they've kept the movie. And something just came in from my heart to my mouth like a pulse, and I said, I'm going to pay for this. I didn't know anything about the film or anything about the story, nothing. But the inclination or the inkling was so powerful, I couldn't stop this. And, you know, that's what it's like when I'm singing. There's a feeling that comes of, it's almost like, not stress, but emergency, like urgency, like a sense of urgency that I can't escape. There's a thing that unlocks, and it's a connection between the music and this abstract thing that's in the creative center of the human, which we all have. It's not unique to me. It's almost like a little bit of stress maybe. And then all of a sudden and do you know what? If you're in the firing line of this electrical thing that happens to me at that time, you're going to burn. You have to let me work at this moment. You can't stop because it's painful for me to stop. Do you understand? And the only way I can describe that is that moment is easier for me to describe because it's practical. Do you understand? It has a practical scenario so encompassing it, where the singing itself is so complex because every piece of music is different. I notice that there's some words in the singing that I do that are familiar from other pieces, and I always seem to turn up in the different pieces of music. But most of the pieces of music have their own unique language. And that's not something that I think about. It's automatic. It's not a Holy Spirit thing. It's a soul thing, I think. And it's dimensional, connected to our soul tissue. You know, some people say, oh, but you're singing in tongues. No, not from the Holy Spirit tongues. It's not, because I pray in the Holy Spirit tongues. I know. So I can discern the difference between these two things. One is a musical instrument, and the other one is a spiritual language. Do you understand? But you see, the problem with me is that because this information comes to me so quickly that, I mean, there's times when I, like this guy, I just want to finish off that explanation with this man when I said, I will pay for this. And I couldn't stop. It was like I had no power to stop myself. It was like, you know, God was saying to me, you have to do this for this man because I need this work to come out. It was that strong. And I didn't think about it again. I went on tour with Hans Zimmer, and then I got a call saying, oh, you know, we're having difficulty, blah, blah, blah. And then the money went through, and then I didn't think about it again. And then I get a call saying, oh, we're opening up. Do you want to come and see the movie at MIV? He said, I've made you one of the producers on the project. I mean, I did nothing. I gave them a bit of money to get them out of trouble. And he's made me one of the producers on the project, which is just amazing. I can't believe that. But because I really was quite comfortable to be the ghost at the banquet. I didn't need anyone to know about that. But when I saw the film, it's a really hard film to watch because the film is about refugees. And it's a film where these people are running from the horror and running into an even worse horror, taking refuge somewhere else. And this is something that we really need to look at. And we can't keep shying away from it. And our governments can't keep shying away from the reality that our children are being trafficked. There are terrible sex crimes going on in these situations and the worst kind of exploitation. And that's what the singing is like. It's like it has to happen. It must be. You can't stop this. And, you know, often I've said to Marcello, you can't talk to me when I'm doing this, Marcello. And he looks at me like, oh, my God, I'm working with this crazy woman, you know. But it's like, just let me do it. Or don't tell me to do it when I'm not ready. You have to wait until I'm ready. I need to cook the dinner. I need to do some washing. Once my things are done, I'm going to come to the studio and I will sing for you, okay? But not before. And don't start telling me what to sing because I don't even know what to sing. So what, do you think I'm going to start thinking about what I'm supposed to be singing when I don't think when I sing? You know, so it's very difficult for people to understand and they think she's a bit mad or there's something wrong with this woman. But I know there are other people out there that it's not an affliction. It's a blessing. It's a beautiful thing. But it is actually quite stressful, which I've questioned many times when people have said to me, oh, but you sound like, you know, I want to hear your voice when you go to heaven and all this kind of thing. I thought if only these people knew what it was like sometimes. I'm not walking around with a couple of candles, you know, and some dreadlocks, you know, chanting, you know. This is quite a stressful experience because I only have 1 or 2 shots at it and then it's gone. You know, that's like, you know, and the thing is that I know there are other people that will hear that and understand that. But it's that important. And when I saw the director last night, I said to him, I will never doubt my intuition again. And I think these intuitive powers that we have are much more powerful than our practical ability to architecturalize and construct in practical measures. That moment really convinced me when I knew I had to give this guy money. There was no way out. And I'd never even, and it's a huge risk for me because this film could have been about anything. Do you know what I mean? That's the amazing thing. It's that automatic energy that I know I have. I have this and I know others have it. I know that I believe we all have it. I believe we all have it. It's just a matter of whether something provokes you to act and whether you can walk without fear. That's the big one, that you're allowed to have the confidence. Because a lot of, from the time we're born and go through school as children, we're told you can't do that. There's no way you can do that. And sometimes we end up doing something that no one told us we couldn't do by accident because they haven't hurt our confidence there. Do you understand? So we go, I never thought I'd do this, you know, but in some way, if you dig back into the history of this unique individual, it's because that part of them escaped the critique. And that's why encouragement, you know, and love between people, not to sound like an old cliche, but the love and encouragement between people, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I'm relaxed when I work with Marcello, because I know he believes in what I'm doing. I don't have to worry. I mean, I'm not relaxed in the sense of creatively, but I'm relaxed in the sense that I trust that I can be whoever I need to be very, very quickly with him present if he just lets me, because I know he trusts me. I'm not going to have to walk in there and think I'm ended up having an argument with someone or walk away feeling terrible or whatever, because he trusts me. He will eventually go, okay, there you go, there's the piece. You know, and it's difficult for him. It must be difficult for him.
Not, and you know, I mean, you sit in a room and you write music, and then Lisa comes in and she does her thing, and it's like, you know, am I really going to say anything after that performance? I mean, she'll nail it on the first go, and you're like, really? I mean, there are times where you'd love to have more. See, if I am guilty of some things, that after Lisa does a performance, I want more, because she does and then she starts to become a bit of a diva, and she'll get up and she'll go back to the kitchen and keep cooking. You know what I mean? And I'm like, give me more. You know, I mean, if it were up to me, I'd have her there for 6 hours giving me more. But, you know, I also happen to be a big fan of her work. You know, I mean, it's come on. I mean, it's Lisa Gerrard. I mean, she'll listen. She'll listen to piece and just completely obliterated emotionally with her vocals. I mean, you know, it's interesting because I was mentioning this gentleman that when I was back in LA working on this project, and I had one of my good friends and client came over, and he listened to a piece that we have for the new album, The Poetry of Life. And he looked at me and he was just like dumbfounded. He said, how do you do this? I said, I consider myself very lucky, because I'm in the room, I write these pieces, and it happens to resonate with her, and I just sit there and press record. I mean, there's not much to it, you know, seriously. And that's one of the things I love about working with musicians, is that Lisa knows that I'm very much a control freak, you know, because that's why I know how to master and engineer. But when I work with an artist, I've done all the controlling I want to do. When I work with an artist, it's about them. It really is about them, because I've done all the control I can. I mean, I'll mix, I will master, I will get the sonic architecture together so that I do the best I can within my means to sculpt out the beauty of what these artists do. But I'm not there to control the artist. I'm already controlling so many other things that I welcome and celebrate the artist doing their thing without controlling them. And if it so happens that they do something that tears up my composition, well, then so be it. Let me celebrate and support what they've done. Lisa's, we were talking about this before, where I will send a piece to Lisa, and I have an idea of what it's supposed to be musically, and then she'll do something completely off the creative idea that I had, and I will literally rewrite the piece because she's done something so stellar that I'm like, I can't let these vocals not be represented properly, you know? And so that happened very much so in the piece Stories of Love, Triumph, and Misfortunes, where, you know, I had a piece with Bahar Shah, and I thought it was going to be this kind of epic thing, and I sent them to Lisa, and Lisa did this thing that I was like, okay, I can't let go of these vocals. These vocals take precedence over this music. And so, yeah, it's more than trust. It's admiration. It really is, honestly.
Excellent. Amazing. Another question. This one is coming from Chris Conte, actually. He's saying, any chance to see your performance in Immortal Diamond with Paul Grabowski recording live last October in Melbourne? Do you know if they're going to be creating like a DVD or a Blu-ray?
They have recorded it. They recorded it, and it's been filmed and everything. I think that it's coming out in November. I think they're looking at releasing this in November. But I don't think it's like a release thing. It'll just be sort of for some TV shows and, you know, this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got it. And a question for Marcello. Feel free to elaborate on the new studio you're sitting right now. How difficult it was to put it together. You moved from Los Angeles to New Mexico, and you are a one-man show, so you need to put everything together while you were working. Plus, you were driving. Plus, you were mastering. I know we talk here is 2 o'clock in the morning, so we talked several times late at night, and you told me, well, sometimes I go to the studio at night. On a Friday, I come back on Sunday. You just stay until 4 o'clock. You have like a sofa where you sleep. You take a shower, get coffee, and keep on going for another 4 hours, and then eventually you left on Friday, coming back on Sunday. So you are like a vampire. You don't sleep much, man.
Well, the thing is that this work, when you're mixing and producing and recording, there's so much attention to detail. It takes hours upon hours upon hours. I mean, if people knew the amount of days that I spent on Exaudia, going through Lisa's vocals and going through the guitars and the synths and the bass, the percussion. So no one else does it but me. So, I realized that a day is not long enough. And so, I mean, I was based in Los Angeles for a long time, and I think thanks to the pandemic, if there's one positive thing the pandemic has brought, is that it's taken out the stigma of needing to have somebody in the same room. I had a studio in LA that because of the traffic and the distances in LA, directors would eventually not even come. They would meet me once, and then they were like, well, I can't make it. It's too far and traffic. And by the time I get there, so I would end up uploading files and realize that, I mean, I love Los Angeles, but I wanted to be in a place that was more creatively conducive to what I do. And so I after being in Australia and seeing that Lisa has basically created her own reality, and she lives in a stupendous place creatively, and it's just super inspiring. It brought some perspective into my life, and I thought, I need to find a place that I feel inspired and I feel comfortable in, and New Mexico for the time being is definitely that place for me. So I came here and set up shop, and I'm looking to support the community here and bring potentially some Native Americans into the soundtrack industry, undiscovered people in this area into the sound, and bring some support to some of those communities by doing that. So I think I can be of more service here than I could be in LA. So
good for you.